My plan was to give over a bunch of ideas that could be provocative. I don't know, you don't have to agree with everything I'm saying.
I'm so sorry. Can I leave this in here?
With pleasure.
I'll listen to you later, but I want to go to the other class as well. Thank you so much, and it's fabulous. I really appreciate it.
With pleasure.
Send me the recording of the other.
Of course, yeah. Okay, take two. So, first of all, those who don't know me, my name is Menachem Nissel. My claim to fame is I'm married to Debbie Nissel, who is a master mechaneches. She should be sitting here. She what? She was your shafan?
No.
Okay, whatever it is. And she has managed to raise 9 kids and a husband. That's a joke for them. I'm sorry about this, okay? And very successfully, Baruch Hashem, we made seven weddings already. And this is the way it goes. And Moshe is 18. That's the one that you raised, okay, back in the day. Moshe is 18 now. He's in Beis Matis. We have a 14-year-old who has decided that since she's the last one, and she reminds us every day that she's growing up in an old age home, that she's going to give us a run for our money. But she's great. She's, Baruch Hashem, doing great. And as I always say, when I teach tefillah, that's like my main thing. When I taught you tefillah. So whenever I don't teach tefillah, my davening goes down. And I honestly feel when I teach tefillah, the number one person that has to listen is myself. I'm not saying this to be politically correct, but I'm just going over my notes over here. I gave this class in Cape Town in Kafhei Av Tafshin Ayin Tes. So this is my last time I gave a parenting class. And I know that every time I give this class, I feel tremendously guilty, and I call out my kids afterwards and I say, am I a good father? Like, tell me I'm a good father. Because this is obviously, I'm talking ideals, so anyone that feels that they don't fit into this ideal, don't feel inadequate, we're in this together. We're all in this, we're trying our best. My chavrusa back in the day, Suki Berry, who's famous for music, Suki and Ding, he once asked our Rabbi, Rabbi Shapiro, he says, how do you raise kids? So he was expecting something deep and profound, and Ramesh says, I don't know. I says, you do your best, you daven a lot, and somehow things work out. Those are the words that he used. He said, nothing particularly profound. And I understood from that you don't need to pass a course to become a parent. The Torah says there's a mitzvah to have children, and you have to pass a course to become to drive, or whatever it is, some to become a doctor, but to raise a child, apparently it seems to be that every Jew should have it inside of them, the correct instincts, how it is to be a parent. Our grandparents never had these workshops, I promise you. They knew how to raise kids, stuff like that. You step out of line, everything was done well. Our parents grew up normal, healthy grandparents, great-grandparents, and by and large, Klal Yisrael has worked in this area. Our generation has unprecedented challenges. There's a lot of stuff that's why we need just to get together to talk things through, because we have challenges that I don't think happened in earlier generations. So what I want to do over here is, first of all, just identify that it's hard, really hard, to parent teens. Did we mention I'm talking specifically about teens? Okay, you knew you were getting yourself into. Okay, because basically parenting goes from 2 stages. The first stage is where you actually say, whoa, I can do this. And then they hit the teens, and then suddenly strange things start to happen, and you feel you lose control. And Rabbi Simchani, okay, you remember what you were like as a teen, so it's basically, the misery tends to be passed on to the next generation. That's the way it works. I actually learned a new phrase this year. My 14-year-old girl is called a tetit. The word tetit comes from the word kitat tet, which is basically 9th grade or turning 14. Tetit means a girl that is going through the transition of God. This is like the lowest class in the Beis Yaakov high school system in Israel. They come from being very calm, happy, sweet girls into living in the inside of a Latino telenovela. I don't know what it is, but the social dramas that they go through has no bottom line. It's like, and Baruch Hashem, I have a great relationship with my daughter, so she'll talk and tell me what's going on, and Chani did this to Ruchi, and Ruchi did this to Shifra Chana, and everything's happening, it's all happening, and how we're supposed to raise these kids. So, as I said, all we can do is do our best. The question is, are we really doing our best? I just want to quote Reb Nachman Buhlman Zatzal. Reb Nachman Buhlman once said a very, very wise thing. Just to back up, one more thing that I have, which is not so much for your crowd. What I mean to say, it's not a yeshiva crowd. I work with NCSY. NCSY, those teens have a different set of problems that our kids don't have. I'd like to think that our kids don't have it all, but by and large, a couple of years ago, I was in Canada. I was doing a parenting Shabbaton, Kibbutz Avim Shabbaton with the kids, and I had a classroom like this filled with 50, 60 kids. I asked them, hands up those who think it's cool to be seen with the rent. The rent is like the woohoo cool way of saying parents, right? Okay, hands up those who think it's cool to be seen with the rent. So less than half raised their hands. The others basically would tell me, the parents are okay, but you don't want to be seen with them. Okay, and actually it's terrible to actually be seen with your parents. There's a bushot, as we say in Hebrew. So I understood that there's a problem over here. Kids do not feel comfortable with the parents. Sometimes I ask the kids, how many of you actually have issues with your parents? And once again, about half will raise their hands. Rav Buhlman said, it's all a pasuk in Nevuah. Which pasuk in Nevuah? The last Nevuah that exists. The very, very last words of Nevuah is Hini Anochi Shalech Lechem Es Eliyah Hanavi Lifnei Ba Yom Hashem Hagadol V'Ner. This is the last words of the prophet Malachi, and it's really the last Nevuah. Hashem is going to send us Eliyah Hanavi, who's going to bring Mashiach. What's the first thing he's going to do? V'Heishiv Leiv Avos Al Banim. The first thing he's going to do is reconcile the parents with the children. So Rabbi Buhlman Zatzal said, Michlal De'ikar Rechok. The generation before Mashiach comes, there is going to be a distance between parent and child. I don't want to talk about this because I want to give a practical class, but just in 10 seconds, hashkafically, I understand the following. This is my own understanding. Before Mashiach comes, there's what's called a tishtush. There's a breakdown of anything that defines you, which means you go back 100 years, there was a thing called a parent and a child. There was a thing called this is LA, there's a thing called a male and a female. There was a thing called a king and a people. As we get closer to Mashiach, all these things break down because Mashiach, his job is Hashiva Shefteni Kivirashena, because the job of the Shephet and the Malachim is to show everybody their true essence and how to express themselves. This is a comfort because when I see what's going on with the kids today, so this has been predetermined, and the Nevi'im knew this was going to happen. People don't know who they are. I mentioned king and people. So even 20 years ago, there was a thing called a melech. I think that Ronald Reagan was a melech. Roosevelt was a melech. America had a thing called malchus. And no one wanted to know what was going on behind the scenes. No one wanted to know. They wanted to see a person that you wanted to look up at. People wanted to have a king. So again, I'm not talking politics over here, but no one's going to say that Trump is malchus. You're not going to say it's malchus, someone that tweets from a toilet. It's not a melech, okay? He's not a melech. It could be that he's good for Israel. It could be that Parshas Yisro is his favorite parsha because he's a Gentile that goes to push around his Jewish son-in-law. But that's it. Get it? Yisro. Okay, whatever. Okay, whatever it is. It could be that he's good for us. It could be there's a lot of good things coming out. He's good for the economy. But he's not a melech. And same thing, male and female. People don't know. Am I male? Am I female? Am I a child or am I a parent? That is also being lost. Parents behave like children. Children think they know more than their parents. My sister has on her fridge a little sign that says, "Ask a teen while they still know better than you." Okay, it's a great little thing over there. While they still know more than you, whatever it is. Okay, so I want to ask the following question: are we really being good parents? So I'm going to say a lot of things over here, and each one of you can say to Rabbi Nissel, you're exaggerating, or doesn't this relate to me? You can say whatever you want, but I just want to get things that I have seen where good people make mistakes. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Coffee.
Okay. Oh, it's not happening, the coffee.
I'm sorry, they couldn't find any.
This is California. Okay, what's going on over there? You don't have a coffee bean in La Brea? Nothing?
They closed down.
Really?
Just not
Baruch
Baruch
atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shakol niyeh baro.
You have almond milk.
No, I'm happy with black. I just need caffeine in my system. Once I start the class, then I no longer need it. It's always before, and I'm like tired, and then afterwards, once I start teaching, I'm good again. So I'm going to say a bunch of things over here. Please don't think I'm like accusing you or anything like that. I'm just saying mistakes that I have seen again and again, and just you should be aware of it. These are classic parenting fails. And to answer the question, are we good parents? So every person in this room knows for a fact that the single most powerful parenting tool that we have is called role modeling. Which means, just like you think about it, and I know it's hard to admit, but there's so much of the way your mother was, that's how you are now. It's just admit it. We don't even like to think about these things, but in the end of the day, it's always that way. In a way, I very often I comfort parents by saying that kids go on their little journey that starts around about 12 or 13, and I tell them by the mid-20s, when they're raising their kids, they're going to do what they saw with you. And so often I've seen this again and again. But the bottom line is that the kids know their value systems by watching how the parents are. And therefore, the single most important parenting thing we do is not how we communicate with the kids, but how we communicate with ourselves and our spouses to set a tone in the house that this is what we are, and therefore through osmosis, you only have to open up your mouth, this is what we expect you to be as well. I didn't have this in my notes, so I just reminded myself that when my father had dementia for the last 10 years of his life, so I didn't do this as a parenting act. I do this because I knew this was my last chance to do kibbutz avim. I never ever let anyone touch my father when I was there. They had these workers, professional workers. I wouldn't let them touch my dad. I wanted to make sure that I did everything myself for my father. And I'm hoping that I'm hoping that dementia does not kick in, although sometimes I can't find my keys. But the bottom line is that I do say, and I'm hoping, as Hashem Yisbarach, you see, when you're honoring your parents, so your kids will honor you. But the point is that what we all do as a mistake is forget that the Torah says there's an Issa D'Oraisa, there's a Torah prohibition against Einas Devarim. Einas Devarim means you are forbidden to say hurtful words. It's not a Durabanan, it's not a Chumrah, it's a D'Oraisa. And our kids, very, very often we think because they're just our children, therefore we can let out a hurtful word, and we don't understand how much damage we do. And dafka, because they're your kids, you should go the extra mile to be super sensitive, not to say anything hurtful. So, for example, just hurtful words today is called verbal abuse. But I'm talking about the mildest of the mildest of the mildest verbal abuse. For example, your kid breaks something. So you know your child does not want to break something. And you say, why did you do that? Or why can't you look where you're going? Or why can't you think first before you act? So how does the child feel after that? The child feels terrible because, of course, she doesn't want to break your china or whatever it is. And especially when it's something expensive, and then you make a big deal out of it. And just again, when I say verbal abuse, I would like to add, doesn't have to be from your mouth, it's also with your eyes. Kids pick up from your eyes exactly. You can say one thing, and your eyes give a different message. Your kids will pick up on this. I think that for a lot of parents, the mistake is that we think somehow, because they have a mitzvah of kibbutz avim, so somehow they're lesser human beings, ki'ilu that there are servants. And now, obviously I don't mean this literally, but on a very, very, very subtle level, we think that we have rights over them. We don't have rights over this. They have mitzvahs towards us. They have an obligation to honor us. But if they don't want to, they don't have to. If anything, our mitzvah is the opposite. Our mitzvah is an issa d'oraisa, to trap your child by asking something that's unfair. For example, if the kid has a test coming up or something like that, or even if they're preparing for camp, and you say, no, tonight you have to do the dishes, or something like that, or whatever it is, that it's their turn to do something, and they say, Mom, can I have a break over here? And you say, no, these are the rules. So in a way, you're setting them up for failure. You have to understand, they have a mitzvah to honor you as much as they can. When I speak to the kids, I tell them about the importance of to chaperine, to do everything you can to be the best child you can be. After I make fun of parents for 20 minutes, then I tell them about how you should get it right. And so with you, I say the exact opposite. With you, I say to you, kibbut avayim is their mitzvah. And you have to look at a child, and you have to say to them, this is if they do something wrong, if they mess up over here, you have to hold your mouth back and not say something that be'etzem won't get them to change. Because when they drop something, or the other example I put over here, look where you're going, okay, these things, those words we also make the same mistake sometimes. You've never dropped anything, you've never lost something, you never did something stupid. We all do these things all the time. We're human beings, and we accidentally do this to our children as well. I have a custom, and we've been doing this. So Baruch Hashem, my oldest child is now 35. He has a Rosh Kolel today. It's Bli Anara. I'm just making you feel old. But Yehuda Michal is 35. He's got a Rosh Kolel and whatever his Yaakov Yisrael has now. My second son has a yeshiva for kids off the derech. He was the one that gave us the most trouble raising him, and now he's taking care of kids like him a generation later. Every Erev Yom Kippur, my wife and I go to all our kids and we ask them for mechila in case we were over an Isser, specifically Onas Dvarim. That's the one thing that I think that I do without even realizing, is I'll say something to my kids that makes them, that I think is a parenting moment, but really it's a parenting fail, because they know they should be working on it, and my words don't help anything. They just make me feel good, and in the end it just turns out to be hurtful. So that is one example of where we sometimes fail, we make mistakes. It's the simplest of Averis, but it's still an Issa Deraisa Kol Einos Dvarim. Just remember, on the Yom Kippur, you say an Achet for Einos Dvarim. So the point is, it's right up there. It's one of those big things that we do all the time without realizing it. Now, when I give a regular parenting class, I talk about the ABCs of parenting: attention, boundaries, and consistency. Where did I get this from? I made this up. So it's not like it just makes it easier for me to. A is for attention. You have to give your kids a lot of attention. B, you have to give them boundaries. So the best parent gives them extreme love and extreme strictness. At the same, not extreme strictness, but it's a balance. Kids want to feel safe, which is why we give them boundaries. They want to feel that the parents know what they're doing. They also want to feel extremely loved and extremely focused on. But the third one is consistency. And this also boils down to midos. So there's three levels of consistency. One is between you and yourself. The second is between you and your spouse. And the third is between you and the institutions that you send your kids to, the schools and so on. Now, I want to emphasize to you, the person that knows you best, even more than your own spouse, are your children. Because your spouse are too busy with their own lives. But kids are, by nature, especially when they hit the teens, hypercritical of their parents. It's a defense mechanism. So they actually know you better than anyone. If you want to know what midos to work on, you can ask your teen. They'll tell you every small little thing. It's a very, very scary thing. But we have to recognize that your kids pick up on every inconsistency and every hypocrisy that we do, intentionally or unintentionally, and it goes to the back of their mind. So let me give you some examples over here. Sheker, just in general, if you catch a kid in a lie, you got to figure out how to be chilled about it. Just when children are very small, meaning 3, 4, 5, 6, sometimes even all the way to 7, they don't even know that they're lying. It is a human nature, when you're a child, to create imaginary scenarios in your mind. And they honestly think they didn't do that thing because they've created an imaginary world where what they think they've done hasn't actually happened. So very often you have to just be gentle with them. Later on, they will actually lie to you. But you will notice there's a massive, massive difference between a child lying and a child being a liar. A liar is a character trait. Lying is a defense mechanism. So I lied throughout high school to my parents, and I know my kids lie to me, and when they get older they will tell me. And no offense, but you probably lied to your parents as well. Sorry, Khani, but that's the way it works over here. Okay, it's nothing personal, but that's how we do these things. We do these things without even realizing that we're doing it. For example, let's say the phone rings, and you tell your child, who is it? And the child says, it's Mr. Cohen. He says, oh, it's Mr. Cohen. Do me a favor and tell him that I'm not here. Now, what do you just do at that moment then? You lied. Okay, you just basically did a sheker because you are there. What are you teaching the child? That to push someone off, it's okay to do a lie. Another example, you're caught and the traffic cop comes and stops you. So you go like, oh, I'm sorry, officer, I didn't see, whatever it is. Like, sure, you didn't see, okay? You didn't see the officer, but you didn't see the signs. No, oh, 25, I thought it was 35. Oh, 55, I thought it was a freeway. I didn't realize it was a cul-de-sac. Like, I apologize. And all these things over here, the child's in the car, and the child says, oh, I get it. So to avoid a problem, it's okay to lie. Okay, fast forward, the kid is now a teen. You give them a curfew, they come late for curfew. Where were you? Oh, I didn't notice the time. Okay, what did you do? Okay, this is the Hamish crowd, so I can't see. You went to see a movie. Which movie? Bambi. Okay, how many times can you see Bambi? Like, for goodness sake. So that's it. So the kids know. It's the best thing. The best thing is just you say a little fib, and you get out of all the problems over there. When I give chassan classes, I'll tell a husband it's okay to lie, and especially the beginning years. Don't listen, okay? But it's okay to lie for mutal shanas of ner shalom. So what's an example? If your wife asks you, you go to kollel, says, did you learn well today? He says, of course I learned well today. They don't have to know that you were schmoozing politics by the coffee room. Okay, they don't need to know these things. They need to live in this. So you learn to lie to be able to show them bias. The kids figure these things out almost instantly. They know, they see that to get out, did you do your homework? Yes, I did my homework. And they'll do this not because they're liars, it's a defense mechanism, and it works. If you want your kid not to do that, you have to become a Talmud of Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky. Just for the record, every night I learn with David Kamenetsky. He's his Rabbi Yaakov's son, and it's incredibly annoying learning with people who are Anshe Emes. Okay, it really is. People that I learn with David Kamenetsky. There's zero shtick with him. Everything he says is exactly. It's just whatever. It's just, okay. That's what I'm supposed to do. He's a chavrusa. He's a Kamenetsky. So what do you want from me? He's always, everything comes out of his mouth is Emes, and his father, everything comes out of his Emes. But that's something that we have to aspire to, not just because it's the right thing to do, because then the kids will also pick that up and pass it on to the next generation. Another thing is in here I'm very guilty. So I just tell you, it's atzlus, is laziness. So anyone that knows my wife, it's not my wife's problem at all. My wife gets up in the morning and she goes at 100 till the end of the day, and then she basically dies until the next morning when she has a tchias hamesim. That's basically her life. But for me, like I'm a snooze button kind of guy. Second cup of coffee, I sort of slowly get into the day. That's just the way it is. At night I get hyper, but the thing is as follows: your children will know exactly your value system by how excited you get. It's not just like Shlomo Melech. He says ish lefi mahalalo, right? You know a person by how they talk, what they get excited for, and how they move for things. You have here in LA. I don't even know how much the yeshiva world over here is affected by it, but men very often into sports. Just the way it is. Doesn't matter. Hamish people, they're into sport. I don't really get this, but I do because my best friend is a Rav in Manchester, and I went to his wedding, and they told me that between the chuppah and the chasna, I'm talking about there was a big European game going on, and so the men are busy. I'm talking about these are all people that learned forever in Gates at Yeshiva. I'm talking about these guys over here. So if a child sees that you're more excited about these things than they are about, for example, being on time for davening, so they get the message. With davening, it's okay. As long as you're there by Baruch Hu, it's good enough. Okay, you mosey in somewhere particular somewhere. They see that. So some point later on in their lives, they'll find out there's a section called davening called korbanos. I'm talking to the representatives over here, and they find out these things exist and the importance of it. But the point is, that's it. They'll learn davening by seeing how you daven, and they'll learn what you're excited about, what's important for you, by the way you do these things. I have to share with you. I heard recently from a chaver who works in Kiruv that a kid went off the derech. And when this person asked the kids, give me an example of why you went to, what was motivated you? So he says, my mother every night before I went to sleep, she always checked up on me to make sure that I brushed my teeth. But she never really cared whether I said Kriya Shema Lamita or not. Now, it's such a small little thing, but that child picked up the message over here. Brushing your teeth is important. Kriya Shema Lamita, no, you did, you didn't, it's no big deal over here. But that's it. You have given over a value system about what's important for you. This is the oral hygiene is more important to you than anything you could possibly give over in terms of the importance of why you say Kriya Shema Lamita. For those of you that want on Torah anytime, my last share is on Birkas HaMapil, which I consider to be the single most neglected bracha. Anyone over here who can go from a mapil from beginning to end and explain to me every single word, I will sponsor a coffee bean for you, okay? But a trip to Panama. How do you know?
My mother was.
Oh, that's right. Okay, correct. So I'm telling you, Mapil, we say it every night. We say it in, half dead, and then like that. We say a Mapil, and then we don't even notice the crazy words that we say. I'm just trying to make a point, is that the passion that you give over for what's important for you is what the kids are going to pick up on. Another example, imitating you. So every person in this room, unless you're a malach, gets upset. We all get upset. But the question is, what is the triggers that gets you upset? So the kids pick up on that very, very well. What makes you upset? What does not make you upset? I had a situation once when I was a Rabbi in Memphis that a kid had a foul mouth. He had a foul mouth. So it was a parents-teacher evening. I said, I'll meet the father and I'll meet the mother and I'll tell them there's something wrong with your kid's mouth. The father comes in. I did not realize that the father was a construction. He owned a building company, and he worked with construction. He comes in, and he says, Rabbi, if my son is giving you trouble, I'm going to like beep, beep, beep. And I said, okay, now I get it. Okay, I get everything suddenly made sense to me. And it's a very, very scary thing. They pick up on these things as well. So you have to make sure that train yourself that when something, for example, let's say you're a normal, healthy person, and you love whatever, the things in your house. I'm talking to the ladies now. You love the cooking that you make. You love, the outfits that you wear. But you don't want your kids to think this is the most important thing in the world. So you have to show that the other things are more important for you. That you fuss more about that the candles should be polished than you do that your outfit should be perfect. I'm not saying chas v'shalom that you shouldn't say this is a value. It is a value in our circles to look good for Shabbos. You should see that cover Shabbos, you dress nicely and it matters to you, and you can be fashionable and put together in a sanur way, and everything else that you know what to do. But the question is, how important is it for you? If it's also important, then they'll see this is awesome. But if it's the most important thing, is that the way you decorate your house and the way you put everything together, the kids will realize this is more important than avodas Hashem, and that cannot be. It always has to be that you speak it out and say, I like to have a beautiful house because my house is my mishkan. And that's it. So it's a different way of looking at it. It's all part of my avodas Hashem. My Shabbos table always has to be beautiful. And if a person has a clean house, has got a clean body and a clean mind, everything like that. You can couch everything that you do in the way that's healthy. All my two rabbis were Rabbi Shapiro and Revolba Zatzal. Both of them have immaculately perfect houses. Their Rebbitzins, everything was so betomed and so beautiful. It was a pleasure to be in there. And I also, last Shabbos I was in Bnei Brak with Rabbi Yosef Cohen. Okay, I was in Bnei Brak Shabbaton last Shabbos I was in Panama. Yesterday, where am I? Yesterday I was in Westwood. Last Shabbos I was in Bnei Brak, with Dachidina. And Rabbi Yosef Cohen took them into the house of Rabbi Aaron Steinman. And they go like a tour. It became like a thing that seminary girls go in, they see the stender, the this, and everything like that. And I have to tell you, it really, really bothers me. And I told Rabbi Yosef Cohen to say in my name that I don't like this whole. They showed photographs of the house after he died to show how simply he lived and how simple and everything. It was, how do you say muznach in English? Neglected. Thank you. Everything was neglected. You say, Olam Hazaneh. And I said, that's not right, because when the Rebbitzin was still alive, nothing was neglected. Again, Rabbi Aaron Leib did not notice the fact that the Rebbitzin made sure that the room was always perfect. Everything was clean. Everything was put together. There was no grime or dirt. It didn't have that the children's fingerprints The Rebbetzin kept a nice geschicked house. It was in a modest way, but it was still geschicked and put together. That's not a problem to have a nice geschicked, beautiful house. It's a problem when you say this is the centerpiece of my values. No, it's secondary. The centerpiece of value is that we're here at this wall. There's a corridor and everything like that, and we're here to serve Hashem. This is what I wrote over here. I wrote this for South Africa. This is not the crowd. No, it's not the crowd. I'm saying it anyhow, but I'm complimenting you now. Yesterday I was with the Persian community, so there I mentioned this as well. My father's Hungarian, so that community also exists. There's certain homes where career becomes like the 11th commandment, or actually becomes the pre-10 commandments. The very first thing you have to do is have a good parnasa. Certain people, especially those of you whose parents were immigrants, heard the word money in your house again and again and again. I have to tell you something. Although my father was Hungarian, he forbade us from mentioning the word money in the house. The word money was literally a dirty word in our house. He spoke always about achrayas, which is a different concept. In other words, he wanted me to get in Nebuch, I became went into chinuch, but he wanted me. I was supposed to become a doctor, the original plan A, but Baruch Hashem, okay, you would have never met me unless you were stuck in London and had back problems. That's how it would have gone. But the point is that Baruch Hashem, he was very proud of me when I went into. But in my house, the word money was like a non-word. And just in general, I grew up in a home where the values that my parents gave me, at my bar mitzvah, I just don't want to show off, but I did my bar mitzvah, my parents said to me, okay, you have two choices. All your friends are having a fancy affair, right? Whatever it's called, I know what you guys call it. We're at the hall with music and this. We could not give you one. And instead, we'll give the money, it was after the Yom Kippur War, we'll give the money, send the money to Israel, and that will be your bar mitzvah. So I don't have any bar mitzvah pictures. So I said, sure, I don't need an affair, it's fine. So I didn't feel I was missing anything, so I won't have one, it's no big deal. Baruch Hashem, I was bar mitzvahed, I laid the parasha, got an aliyah, there was a kiddush after davening, and then I said my drasha at Shalosh Shidduchos to my family. That was it. That was my bar mitzvah. At my chasana, my father said to my father-in-law, Mr. Brown from Memphis, said, listen, let's not make our kids a wedding. And the money that we save will buy them an apartment in Yerushalayim. So my father-in-law says, well, let me think this through. And then after 5 minutes, he said, yeah, we're doing this. So I did not have a wedding. So obviously I'm halachically married. What happened was, we had a chuppah in the shul. Okay, afterwards there was like a smorgasbord. Our friends danced for us. Afterwards, the Sheva Baruch was just family. The whole thing lasted maybe 2 hours. And that money we bought an apartment in Hernoff for I think it was $60,000. Now it's worth about 10 times that amount. And every single day, my wife and I, first of all, my wife's personality is the same as mine. And you know Debbie, okay? She likes to have a nice house. It's okay. She doesn't need it. As long as everything is clean and put together, everything's fine. The point I'm trying to make is that, as Rabbi Greenblatt, Sadi L'Chon said at my engagement party, he said, when you build a house, right? You should build a makkah, you should build a thing. Do not put damim, literally means blood, but dam also means money. So that's a priority. You talk about money, your kids will become obsessed with money. I have a story about our chevra. I once did a European trip. I was the historian of the European trip with a group of men. All of them are people who are extremely wealthy, and they wanted to go to the Kfarim and everything like that. And I noticed that when they hang out with each other, all they do is talk about money. And they brought their sons with them. And I said to myself, those sons do not have a chance. Because they see the fathers going like this at the Kfarim, but the moment they get back into the car, they're talking about how much is he worth and how much is he worth, and they're like that. And these are the things that is their value system. You've got to be smart about these things. Again, I just realized I'm embarrassed over here. I wrote this in Cape Town, but it wasn't for a firm crowd. So the next line over here, I tell you it's a funny story, but this really does not apply over here. I was in Vancouver, and I gave a parenting Shabbaton. I don't know if you know Vancouver, it's a lot of South Africans, and the parents were not religious, They're religious. They went to Orthodox synagogue, but they didn't keep Shabbos so much. And one of the mothers said, Rabbi, I says, how do I get my daughter to dress modestly when she goes to the synagogue? And she was the kind of mother that I could only look at her from the neck up, and even that shouldn't look too much. It was one of those, she wasn't such a to know herself. And I'm thinking to myself that here you have two strikes, because you want your daughter to like shul. So you don't say, shul's the place where you have to feel uncomfortable about yourself. It doesn't work that way. If you want to make it like shul, the first thing you do is just to talk about the values of going to shul, why it makes a difference, why our relationship with Hashem is so beautiful. Anyone that was there last night, so I quoted Mrs. Rebbetzin Branda Jr. as saying, she said in the Dvar Torah for the weekend, Hashem loves you much more than your parents can ever love you. They should know that message. Afterwards, you should bring them to that point where on their own, they say, I don't feel comfortable not being modest in a shul. They should figure this out on their own, that shul is a place where they step up the dignity, just like they would not feel comfortable going to Her Majesty's ballroom, dressed in jeans and a t-shirt, so they would know on their own that they have to up the way they call it. That is the healthy way of doing things. Now, everything I've spoken till now, I have till when? I want to take questions in a moment. Everything I had till now is all I'm passing guilt in your direction. I'm telling you all that your kids will come out, and every single bad meter that you have, they will pick up on and they will amplify it. So you have to be always self-aware and working on yourself, that you are trying to be the best person that you could possibly be. However, know that many parents feel that when the kids become teens, they can no longer become parents anymore. The kids become distant, they have their own circle. You used to have your best relationship with your son and your daughter, and they no longer want to have that relationship with you anymore, and you feel sort of like, okay, I'm done with parenting. You're so wrong. Parenting has to switch from what I call karate to judo. Karate means it's an active parenting, that's until the hormones. Today, halavai was the hormones. Today, already kids at 10 and 11 know what we found out when we were in our 30s. But that's just the world that we live in. It's very hard over here to protect our kids. But the bottom line is that you should know that one of the midos that every person in this room has for sure is the midah of chesed. And everyone likes to do chesed. Everyone here volunteers for chesed committees and this and that and the other. Chesed begins at home, and chesed begins with your teenage kids. And therefore, you have to always remember this, that your kid secretly and silently and very often subconsciously is crying out to you. So for example, I have two fathers over here. Thank you very much for coming. I just want to make the following comment to both of you and go spread it out to all the menfolk over here. Even in the firmest of the firmest, most hamish of the most hamish of circles, a father has to have a very strong physical connection to his daughter. And the same thing with moms and sons. And I've seen this, how this works over here. A father that hugs her child. And by the way, the best time to do it is Friday night when you give a bracha. So you give a bracha, and you give a bracha after you give your daughter a hug. It should be a hug that expresses, where the child feels that you love them, very much that you love them. And a child, if a daughter gets a hug from the father, she's not going to subconsciously crave male attention. And then I'm not talking about, obviously, I'm not talking about just in general, though the male, that thing about a male attention she's getting from her father, so it mitigates the chances of her looking for other sources to get that attention over there. So I think a father-daughter relationship of hugging is very important. Also a mother and a son, but I'm just warning you, your 14-year-old does not want you to hug you. It's like, ugh, okay, but do it anyhow, just give them a hug, let them know that you love them as much as you can. Other things is that when your kid talks to you, woohoo, kid's talking to me. So you have to stop what you're doing. Were you there last night with that story with Moshe Weinberger's father? It's such a beautiful story, but why are we all doing this? Okay, I just want to tell you that, I want to tell you, the single most powerful you do, whenever your kid comes to you, the very first thing you do, automatically, you go like this and you switch it off. Today, this is the number one thing that fights for everyone else's attention. Every person who has one of these phones it's almost natural to have a mild addiction to it. When you switch it off, Okay, or if you want, put it in airplane mode. Okay, that you're sending a message to the kid. You want to talk to me? Nothing else exists. You are the center and the focus of my attention. The most powerful thing that's even more powerful than that was, could you imagine how awesome it would be if your boss calls you, and then your kid comes to you, and you tell the boss, I'm sorry. Okay, do you mind? I have something just came up that's very, very important for me. And you switch up from your boss because of your child. That is the most incredible message you can give your child, and the child feels safe. And talking about safe, remember, attention, boundaries, consistency. Let me just say one more thing about boundaries. And remember that boundaries is all about making them feel safe. You don't have to apologize. Living in Los Angeles, you don't have to apologize you're giving them a curfew. You don't have to apologize to them that you're making them clean their room, or that they are part of the household where they have to help out. All these things over here are things you don't have to apologize. Don't apologize. Actually, the kid can complain as much as she wants or he wants. Deep down, they're glad. They understand what's going on. You give them a chrayas. You help them help out, and everyone according to their strengths. Now that means you make them help out as a parenting decision, not because you're stressed and you're overwhelmed and you expect the kid to come in and pitch in. That's not fair. You don't have no rights to expect the kid to come and pitch in, even if they can. You can't force a kid and say, I'm sorry, I've got so many guests for Shabbos, I need you to help more. No. Why did you choose to have more guests for Shabbos? Did you sit down with me and discuss it with me? You can't say, I've got more guests, therefore you have to help out. You just tell them, here's the situation, and whatever you can do is appreciate. But I understand, if you have other things, it's okay, I'm going to manage. Like that. And then you take it, let's go to bed at 3 in the morning instead of 2 in the morning. So all these things are messages that we give our kids, that we give them attention, we give them boundaries, we are consistent. I just want to say one more thing about consistency. You have to be a team with your spouse. Once again, I'm not trying to show off, but I never ever saw my parents raise their voices, and I never saw them disagree. I know for a fact that my mother was much more liberal than my dad, but whatever she voiced was behind the scenes. I didn't know, when they discussed parenting, I did not know what was going on. But my dad was sort of like the strict father, and my mom was always silently supporting him, even though I always felt like, because when my dad traveled a lot, my mom would say, hey, do what you want? Like and I did, I certainly did. But again, they were a joint front. One of the rabbis said last night that the Ben Sora Omora is really the parents' problem. It was a diak. He made a comment for the guy. What he should have said, if he would have listened to me, he should have said that the Gemara brings down that what is the reason why we never had a Ben Sora Omora in history is because a Ben Sora has to be the mother and the father are equal in height and in the way they look and in the way they speak. So this obviously is physically impossible. So today you never know. We live in a weird world. But by and large, today they look like they're dogs. People like it's a strange world we live in. But by and large, to have identical parents, obviously it cannot be. But why do we need such a strange halacha? Because this is Chazal's way of saying that the parents have to be literally on the same page. It cannot be that they play off one parent without the other parent. Your children will be masters at figuring out who to get from what. In other words, if dad's the strict one, they go to the mother first to get you to be their ally. And then whatever, they know how to manipulate and divide and conquer. It's an old technique. I'm sure everyone knows what I'm talking about when your kids are doing that to you. My children always come to me first, because I'm like easy. They can more or less go straight into my wallet and take the money. And then I train myself and I say, ask your mother. Okay, and they see how afraid I am. I don't know if I'm afraid of my teenage daughters or my wife. I'm scared of both of them. But they just go and ask your mother. When I say you have to be consistent, you don't have to be consistent for the small things. Only for hashkafa. Hashkafa, you're going to be in the same bed. The small things, it's perfectly normal that mom's into cleanliness and dad's into whatever it is that you have to have, say, the Torah at the table. I don't know what it is. You're allowed to have your own krizot. How do you say krizot? Where are you? How do you say krizot in English? I don't know, say a krizah is like your... No, you're like the stupid things that you're into. Mishugas, thank you. You can have your mishugas, whatever it is. Your father has to say your shoes have to be clean. I don't know, whatever it is. You've got the things that make you you. I'm British. My wife is from Memphis, Tennessee. I cannot stand people eating with their mouths open. That's what it is. I can't deal with it. It's just something. I also hate when people go like this, and I also hate it when other things that British people don't like. I tell them, I'm sorry, I'm British. Just deal with it. And now I see that my kids have the same problems with their kids. I feel so sorry for them. I can't stand the sight of tissues sitting on the table. You know, and Israelis, they blow their noses and they put the dirty tissue on the table, and I can't deal with it. I walk into shul sometimes, and I go in front of people, I take away their tissues and put them in the garbage. And I think to myself, why they have to suffer for me because I'm British? In their culture, it's perfectly fine. It's okay. They can do what they want. But that's okay. That's okay. That's not called being inconsistent with your spouse. Inconsistency means is that different sneer standards or different standards of how important learning is. There you've got to be the same vision for what kind of schools they should. There you're on the same page. And also the same thing with working with the school. You don't have to agree with the school on everything. But what you have to do is you have to constantly compliment the school and constantly show that you and the school, you chose the school because of everything you love in it. I'm in the Israeli system. I don't know if you know what goes on over there. But I literally look for every opportunity to compliment the school, even though every school today has what's called a dementor. It's a Harry Potter term. It's a creature that just their essence makes you feel depressed. They just feel like, they hover around and make all these little girls feel inadequate. So I have my issues, but
Can you explain it a little better? Because
no, you don't have to know what a dementor is. No,
what I'm trying to understand is what is it that you don't like?
In the schools?
Yeah.
Oh,
I work in a school, so that's what I'm trying to.
No,
What is it that
I think that the Beit Yaakov system in Israel some teachers who are extremely harsh in what they demand from the children, and they don't do it in a nice way. And I believe strongly that tznius can never be done out of fear. It doesn't work that way, because in the moment they get a chance, when the fear is gone, then they're going back to not being tzanua. Tznius is a value system that has to be taught out of love, where they feel it's a privilege. It's a privilege, just like the same thing with my sons and going to shul. I don't want them to go to shul until they really think that it's a privilege. School's not a playground; it's a place where you have to feel like, oh, it's a pain. They have to sit for so long. No, you have to make it the ava, that they enjoy it and it's pleasant. It's already a different subject now, but when you see things you don't like at the school, it's okay to tell the children, it's a fantastic school. If I had a chance, I'd still send you to the same school. And it should be true, because most of these schools, most of the teachers are amazing, the ones that I've raised my kids in. You have always a problem. That problem, you can say, I don't have to agree with everything that the school says, but on the ikrim, the general hashkaf of the school, the general message that the school is giving you of how you should build a house, you have to be on the same page, and you have to sometimes keep your mouth shut if you don't agree with everything. Here and there, po v'sham, you can open your mouth. Here v'shem, you can tell your child privately and say, this is not our way. This is not our way. Our home is different. The school has to cater to a lot of people. In the Nissel household, like I said in my story last night, we have respect for gedolim that don't always have exactly the same hashkafa that we do. Okay, these people are the Shem Shemaim and they're Torah people and stuff like that, and they have a slightly different hashkafa. That's okay. That's okay, as long as they know whatever it is that. Okay, I'm not going to say anything because I'm doing so well without. I'm going to. Okay. So I think I said everything I wanted to say. Yeah. What's the most important thing of all? What's by far the most important thing at all in raising children? So you have A, B, C, and D. D stands for daven. Now, I used to think that you could daven for your children once a day, but it no longer applies anymore. Once a day is not enough to daven for your children. If you raise your kids in Los Angeles, your kid is at risk every time they walk into the street. I was just driving over here from here, and I forgot about billboards. We don't have billboards in Harnoff. We don't have but literally you can drive from La Brea to Pico, and you'll know every new movie, every new thing, the names of the actors and actresses, because they're all over there. You know them. My kids don't know the name of any actor, any actress, any athlete, any singer. They don't know anything. You raise the kids in the Harnof, you get at least the first 18 years, they're free, totally free of secular culture. But here, it's in your face. So what do? You daven like crazy, because your child is at risk that their weakest friend is exposed to their weakest friends, and all they need to show you a few images, and you've got them all messed up. So how do you prevent that? You can't. You can't raise your kid in your bubble unless you want to send them to some Hasidic place out of I don't know how these things work. It's almost impossible. What you can do is ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu to be a shemer, not a shemer chinam, right? A shayel shemer sacha with all the achrayas that it's HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he's your child, just like he's my child. Give him a shmira. Make sure he doesn't see that thing. Maybe he doesn't notice. Maybe the wrong child shouldn't walk into their lives. Make sure that you give them the wisdom to make wise choices when they have peer pressures to do things that are stupid. All these things are an obligation. Every time you drop off your kid in school, you say a 30-second tefillah. How do you do a 30-second tefillah? You have three choices. Simplest is just to say in English. The next level is to say Perek Tehillim, and this something in English. And the third level is in the Chazon Ish's Tefillah and Shema Koleinu, which Yedidim, I think, gives out a copy of. There's different things, but you should do all of them. And it should be part of your curriculum. Every time you're taking to this side, you're folding laundry, this side, when you're stuck in traffic, whatever, you're all stuck in traffic. You say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, make sure that my kids are protected, because it's crazy how quickly and how fast kids can become contaminated by the world that's around us. Just to finish off with a horrible story, my Rabbi is Rabbi Shapiro, and I remember 30 years ago, he came to LA, and he met a close friend of mine who was a Rebbe here living in La Brea. He was a Rebbe here. I'm not going to say his name, don't even try and figure it out. And he asked him, how you're learning, stuff like that. He says, where do you learn? He says, every night I go to the Beit Medrash Chavrusa. So my Rebbe said to him, you have to learn at home. Your kids have to see you learning. So he says, why? He says, how do you know your kids are going to grow up from? My friend told me I was shaking all over when he said those words. Because I'm a Rebbe here, I'm a Rebbe over here, I'm a Benter, I'm a Talmud Rabbi Shapiro. What do I have to worry about? He says, you don't know. The kids have to see a father learning. It has to be the role modeling, it has to be in their blood that they see the father learning. And not just, like real learning. That's it. They have to have a real learning. And not just, b'chavrusa with the kid or something like that. If you see a father sitting with even 1 hour a day, sitting with a chavrusa, figuring out a Gemara Rashi Taisus, or at least the daf, whatever it may be, whatever you're holding, see, this is the central value. A house has to be a house that revolves around Torah, around it has to look like a mishkan. The Shabbos candles, the Shabbos table is your menorah, it's your shulchan. The keteris is the divrei Torah and the geschmackheit and the beauty, and everything like that. And the Kodesh Kodashim is where life is created. Everything is the Jewish home has to permeate kedusha and tahara, so that when you come into your home and you kiss your mezuzah and you say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, this is my home. My home is filled with kedusha and tahara, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you do the rest and make sure my kids are protected. Any questions? By the way, it doesn't have to be a good question. Anything's in your mind? Yes, please.
It happens to be my husband likes to learn in the base measure. She feels the learning is more authentic and less disturbed.
We all feel that. All men feel that way.
And I have only girls at home.
I don't know. I think that maybe Friday night you should learn at the Shabbos table.
Yeah, so Friday night he will learn at home. Right.
Okay, it could be that's enough. I'm not. You have to, again, everything I said was klalim. You have to know, I'm just saying to you that it can't be that just the kids see your husband going out to learn.
That's not enough, that they know every night that Bob is not home till 11, he's learning. That's not enough.
Well, I'm just telling you the story. The story of what happened. My Rebbe felt.
Taking it literally.
Yeah, my Rebbe felt that it was important that you should see a father learn. Maybe po v'sham, maybe here and there. Don't go home and tell him the story.
I know, he's not going to be happy.
Yeah, it's good. Anyhow, okay. Don't, it's not. It's just, don't worry about it. It's all good, okay? Yes, please.
I have a question on tefillah. You mentioned, when you're folding the laundry, saying because I feel Tehillim.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll see, I'm puttering around the house and tidying up or something, and I want to ramble Tehillim, and I feel like it's wrong, maybe,
That's what your great-grandmother did. I'm
It's
sorry.
fine?
Yeah, 100%.
half Havana,
That's what they did.
multitasking.
Holding a baby in one arm,
Yeah.
going Shemona Esrei to your little crying baby. That's what women always did.
It's fine, it's not a bad thing.
Yeah. Don't feel guilty, and don't feel guilty asking for ridiculously stupid things.
Mhm.
Whatever, if it's stressing you, if it's things like that, whatever it is, if you can't find the motzet, so I can't speak English anymore. Yeah, okay. You can ask Hashem to help you find it if this is what's on you. You just have to have a relation with Hashem that's ongoing, and that's it. I think that was the key that connected, especially the women. My mother grew up in Germany, and they didn't cover their hair. They didn't, and it wasn't like, there was no cola or stuff like that. It was a different society. Everyone went to university, but my mother, day and night, she was always davening. Her mouth was always moving to Hashem. Why? Because that's what she saw her mother do, and her mother saw her mother do, and it goes all the way back to Sarah Imenu, without question.
They probably were sitting with more kavana than running around the house.
I really respectfully disagree.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just like us menfolk. We have good davenings and then regular davenings and then weak ones. It's not a consistency. Yeah, it's not like that. It's Gedolim stories. Shlomo Zalman was once had a big smile on his face after Shemona Esrei, and somebody had the guts to ask him why he was smiling. He said, "I went from Hashem Sefasei Tifta till Osei Shalom, and I wasn't distracted once." Woohoo! Go Gadol Hadar. Okay, that's it. That makes us feel that we're all normal. We're all normal. It's not so easy. You just better to do it and only half-heartedly than not to do it at all.
For sure. Thank you.
Okay, we're good. If anyone wants private questions, I'm here. I guess I'm here. This is why I'm here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Much.